broadcast. It should be now. Hey, welcome for joining us for the principal chat today. This is Bob Grant, your principal, and we're here to talk about ways we challenge and extend and enrich students here at Washington through a variety of formats, through SSA and our AIG program and our Gifted Challenge electives. So we're just doing a little sound test, and Mr. Bastin, our amazing AIG teacher, is just finishing one of his elective classes. So he's going to be up here in the next 2 or 3 minutes, and he and I will work together to talk with you about the ways that we grow, challenge, and extend students. So we're just going to finish testing our sound and make sure it's working. If you're just joining us, there's several ways that you can ask questions while we're talking today. The key one is you can use Google Chat. And with Google Chat, you can ask questions simply by clicking on your screen. You can also email me at bgrant@wcpss.net. That's bgrant@wcpss.net with questions. Of course, if you're watching this later when it's not live, I will not be able to answer your questions during the live stream, but I can still answer your questions through the email. So we'll continue getting set up, and we're going to start probably in the next 3 or 4 minutes or so.
I'm going to go see if I can get you.
Great. I see that I've got one viewer online. We'll continue to wait for more folks.
Okay, I want you to try it a bit. I don't know time to get this all set up if it'll just automatically work. This is one of the ones I wrote for my grant.
I'm going to let you work around me because I'm getting...
Here's your USB.
Right here.
It might like prompt you back. Can you take that other one out? You're trying to kill me.
Hold down the connect button.
You guys talk so I can see that microphone.
Am I currently on? Am I currently online? We're just checking our sound here. And I'm seeing if I'm online because I need to resume my Hangout on air. Just a minute, we're going to pause. Hey, can you see me? Because I can't see the screen that I'm on. Okay. Parents, if you're just joining us, we're just working on our sound and technology connection. Okay. I'm just checking to make sure that we're actually still working. The live stream is getting set up. And I've had Mr. Bastin who's joining us, and we're getting ready to do our live stream presentation. We're just making sure that our sound is good. And I'm going to give Mrs. Tuttle, who's checking, a double thumbs up. If she can see me with a double thumbs up and hear me well, then she's going to come on back into our studio and let me know we're ready to go. So just a moment before we start. Did you see me with a double thumbs?
Might want to adjust your screen.
Okay.
Like so that you can. I'll show you.
All right. So thank you so much for joining us today. We sent out a class dojo to see to send you a live stream link, and we have two ways for you to participate in this live stream. So you can go ahead and click on the Google chat box and ask questions online, or you can email me at bgrant@wcpss.net, and you can ask questions through email. Obviously, I can answer them live if you're tuning in live right now. Otherwise, if you send me an email message, then I can do that at a later point. Okay, so welcome so much for joining us today. Thank you for your patience. How many viewers do we currently have? We have several besides you, Mrs.
Nope, just me.
Ms. Tuttle. So we have Mrs. Tuttle, and so we have other folks who may be joining us in a little bit or watching tonight. The purpose of today's presentation is to talk about ways we extend, challenge, and enrich kids here at Washington GT Magnet. We've got a successful magnet program. We have many ways that we engage kids, but we want to help you, the parent, to understand what are the ways and processes for doing that. We've got a couple of important things coming up. We have the SSA nomination forms that are due in the next week. Those are forms you send in if you want your child to be tested at the next grade level so they can advance a single subject, math or language arts, for the following year. Mr. Bastin will talk about that in more detail. Mr. Bastin will also talk about how you can qualify for AIG services starting in third grade, and then we do service delivery through our elective program. He'll also talk a bit about ways that we extend kids starting as early as the second semester in kindergarten all the way through 15, all the way through grades 5 for our gifted challenge electives. That's before students are ever formally identified, but we really want to push, engage, and challenge students from a whole range of backgrounds based on observations we're making in the classrooms and how we want to extend our kids. So we'll be going through those pieces. This presentation that you're going to be listening to today, the PowerPoint for it is also on our website. So even if you're watching this later on this week and it's not live, you can go to our school website on the main page and you can click on the PowerPoint, and you can also click on the SSA, Single Subject Acceleration form, that you need to turn in to Mr. Bastin, as well as email him to let him know that you want your child tested. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Mr. Bastin, who's going to walk us through several important components. And just remember, if you're watching live, you can communicate through Google Chat, or you can send in an email to bgrant@wcpss.net, and we'll answer your questions during the live stream, or if you're emailing me after this presentation, I'm happy to follow up then as well. All right, Mr. Bastin.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Grant. My name is Mr. Bastin. We have an amazing school here. Washington Elementary is an amazing school. We have an amazing educational system or format that we follow, and we can extend students in two different ways primarily, but many other different ways with the classroom teacher in collaboration as well. So I'm going to be running through the PowerPoint or Google slide, as Mr. Grant mentioned, which is on our website. Also, as I run through the information about SSA, that is also very up to date and very much on our website. And there are some time critical components of that. So you will want to check that out today if you're interested. So Wake County Public School System, and I'm just looking down here because I have my my presentation in front of me here, but I'm going to talk around it in a more general sense. They recognize children, of course, are all individuals. They all have different needs. What is right for one child may well not be right for another child. Wake County is committed to ensuring all students are challenged to reach their full potential, and that's what we're all about here. Every student is different, and we're going to make sure that we push them, we challenge them where they're at. Whether that be through SSA or AIG or in the regular classroom or in terms of struggling students, just finding where they are and challenging them where they are and giving them everything that they need. We provide challenge in primarily two different ways for students who are needing extra challenge. SSA, single subject acceleration, that involves skipping an entire grade level. So you can, if you're a third grade student and you take the SSA test in math, then you would leap over fourth grade when you enter fourth grade, and you would be sitting with the fifth grade students learning with a fifth grade math teacher a curriculum 1 year ahead of where you are. So a third grader who is going into fourth grade would not sit in their regular fourth grade classroom for math. They would be sitting in a fifth grade classroom. Now that brings with it a bunch of different questions that you need to ask yourself, discussions you can have with your child. It's not just about the test number or the score that they get on the test. And we'll go over that in a few minutes. So that's SSA, single subject acceleration, skipping a grade level in math or language arts, not both. AIG, AIG is a kind of an identification. It's kind of like, it's a signal to us here and to future schools, middle school, high school, that this student has shown, based on very, very heavily, tightly normalized testing, they've shown that they need extra challenge. And the extra challenge may be in language arts again, or in math. And that identification will stay with the student. Once a student is identified, they'll keep that identification. And when they arrive at middle school, then they are flagged as a student who needs extra challenge in whatever way that school offers it, through electives or through push-in with work with a gifted teacher, or pull-out groups with a gifted teacher. And that will look different at different schools. And we'll go over what that means at Washington in a few minutes. And also we'll go over when you could test for AIG and what happens after that. So back to SSA, single subject acceleration. This is very important right now because you have 1 week left only of the nomination window. So if you're thinking of nominating your child to skip a grade level of math or skip a grade level of language arts, now is the time to do that if you think that's right for your child. All of the SSA information is on our website. If you go to our website and click on the Academics and Programs tab, that's where you're going to see it, including the nomination forms, frequently asked questions, any other information you can think of is on our website. Without a form, we cannot test. Even though we're in the digital age, and you would imagine there would be some centralized online system, or you could email me and they're in. It doesn't work like that. Wake County offer very strict guidelines. If I don't have a form, then we can't test the student. And furthermore, if I don't have a form, I can't order the test materials, because if I have 18 forms for third grade SSA math test, I have to order 18 math tests from central office. So it's critical that you get that form into me. It would also be a good idea to email me. My email is at the end of this presentation, abastin, ABASTIN @WCPSS.net, just to let me know, look, I want to nominate my child. They're bringing a form in, but it might be in their bag. And you know, so just those kind of questions, just email me just as a backup so that I know your child is wanting to take the SSA test in math or language arts. That brings me to the main point, single subject acceleration. If your child is already accelerated in math, They cannot then go and get accelerated in language arts as well through SSA. It really is truly single subject acceleration. They can only test in math or language arts as well. The math test passing criteria, again, are on our website. But for most grade levels, you're looking at an 80% or above. And you don't want the idea behind that is if a student in third grade, or say a rising fourth grader, if they know 80% of the if they know 80% of the fourth grade math that they're about to study, then it's okay for them to join the fifth grade students, and we can fill in that 20% that's missing. Anything below that, as research has shown, can cause issues. For language arts, it's a separate test criteria. You're looking at 85%, and if you pass the test, then there's a writing component. So we're not looking to just accelerate advanced readers. They have to prove they're at least a year ahead in their writing as well, and that is a high bar. The writing sample will be scored by central office, and typically, not always, but typically, writing lags reading. So you may have a child who's a year or more ahead in reading, but are they a year or more ahead in their writing as well? And that's a personal determination you need to make before they test. So consider skipping a grade level. If they pass the test, well, before you nominate your child, think about this. Are they academically ready? If you feel they're academically ready, then they may well be, and they can take the test, and we can determine that from their score. Are they emotionally ready? And that's a very separate question. You're thinking of a child sitting in a classroom with students a year older that they may not know. There may be a different kind of developmental set of circumstances there as well. So you have to think, is this right for my student? And it may well be. It is a very successful model, but not for every child. And it can be a big thing for particularly the much younger students to take on. The very youngest students, rising first graders, they have to show that they have completely mastered the curriculum that they're trying to skip. And that's very important, because you don't want to skip over a grade level and find that you're missing a foundational bedrock of mathematics. And I'm talking specifically about mathematics here. If you don't know a fundamental bedrock, you can't skip over and fill in the gap. You have to have those bedrocks there, those foundational pieces. So the passing criteria for the very younger students who are rising first graders is that they need to be proficient on every single one of the constructed response items. And again, that information is on the SSA portion of our website. And after that, every other grade level is 80% pass in math, 85 for reading, and then the writing sample to go along with it. So that's single subject acceleration. Please go on our website and have a look at that. If you're interested, talk to your family, talk to your child about this, and you have until April 26th. That's the final date that we can accept nomination forms. The day after that, I order the test materials, the students are tested, and we go from there. AIG is completely different. Why would you go for AIG identification at Washington? Well, first of all, it shows us that your student or your child needs challenge. They're advanced in math or reading or both or problem solving. And that allows them to access the AIG electives at Washington, which I teach, and other teachers teach here as well. They are slightly biased, but I would say they're fantastic. They are a very special opportunity for us to challenge the students in unique ways and to develop their critical thinking, working on the 4 C's. And the AIG electives offering that high challenge, students that are identified would obviously fit very well into that environment. To access other AIG services, like if a teacher is grouping students for their reading, they might say, well, these students are identified as AIG in reading, so that will be a cluster group that I make in my class. And also some middle schools, it could be important to be identified as AIG as they're making their kind of entry requirements and making their groupings as well. So how do we deliver AIG service? Well, at most Wake County schools, the AIG identified students will receive differentiated services through different groupings. Each school develops their own plan. Every school will satisfy the needs of AIG identified students in different ways. And they have a different set of options that they can choose from. At Washington, before the students are officially identified as AIG, when they're younger, as Mr. Grant said, the last part of their kindergarten year and up to the end of second grade, if a teacher identifies a student as needing challenge, or if they feel that this elective set the challenge electives that I'm going to talk about, if they feel they're a good fit, then those students will be placed on our in-house list. And those are the students that are then invited to take the gifted challenge electives. And they are electives which are always going to be offering advanced challenge, possibly in math, possibly in reading, possibly in science, possibly in social studies, often with a heavy lean towards kinesthetic hands-on learning, which makes these electives also accessible to other students who can benefit from challenge, but maybe through hands-on means, which allows us to form very nice, diverse sets of students in these gifted challenge electives. And they've been proven to be very, very successful so far. And that will be based on teacher recommendation. They'll say, Mr. Bastin, I believe that this student, they're showing that they need the challenge, or they would benefit from the opportunity to be in one of the gifted challenge electives. Third grade, all third grade students are screened for official AIG identification as they, well, just a month after they begin their third grade year. They'll take the COGAT, and then they would go on to possibly take the Iowa. So every third grade student is screened for possible AIG identification. Fourth grade and fifth grade students, that requires a parent to nominate the student, or a teacher, or indeed the student can nominate themselves. But someone has to nominate the student to say, I would like my child to take the AIG tests. The COGAT and the Iowa will be the tests that the student takes, and Wake County provide benchmarks that the students must meet in order to qualify. And at the end of this presentation, there's a link to what they call the gateways, and it shows you the various different pathways students can get officially identified as being gifted. Third to fifth grade, we have our AIG electives, which offer a deep level of challenge to the students identified as being gifted. Okay, Mr. Grant has just reminded me that, yeah, please ask questions. As I'm talking, there's going to be things coming up in your mind that you may want to ask. You can email Mr. Grant at bgrant, B-G-R-A-N-T, at wcpss.net. Or there's a Google chat window at the top right of the screen. So if you're there watching live and you have a question, then please ask that. We can get to that straight away. Or I imagine after the presentation, you can also continue to email Mr. Grant and he'll provide an answer. Okay, so AIG electives offering a deep level of challenge, high level of kinesthetic learning, very accessible, and also identify students, as I say, maybe they may have their needs met in groups in the class or groups outside of the class, cluster grouping, flexible grouping. Maybe I would go in and work alongside a teacher to offer that gifted identification challenge as well. Okay, now then, the traditional identification process I've already gone over briefly. All third grade students will get screened. The COGAT is taken in the early October. So that'll be early October next year for rising third graders. And the Iowa, if a student scores over the 85th percentile in any part of the COGAT, then they would, in December, take a test called the Iowa or the ITBS. And then we collate those scores, possibly do additional testing, and identify students who meet Wake County's guidelines or benchmarks for identification. The nomination windows for fourth grade. So if you're thinking of possibly nominating your child to take the AIG identification tests, they're accepted at any time, but we have two periods in the year which we test. One is in the fall, late September. So that'll be late September. That'll be your first opportunity next year, well, later on this year. And what they call the spring window, which is between early October and mid-January, we'll be testing at the end of January. So you could choose the fall window or the spring window for those to nominate your child. Okay, if you go onto the PowerPoint which we've attached to the website of this PowerPoint of this presentation, you'll see that there is near the end a slide which shows a link to the WCPSS identification gateway. So if you think what score, what percentile would my student have to meet on the COGAT and the Iowa to be identified, then there are 4 different gateways to have a look at there with different subsets of data. So have a look at the gateways. As I said before, all of the information pertaining to single subject acceleration is also on the website. You have 1 week from today to nominate your child and to send in the parent nomination form for single subject acceleration. So please print that off of the website or come to the school to get a paper copy, fill that in and have that sent in before April 26th. Because we cannot accept any nominations after that date. And as I said before, drop me an email if you're thinking about doing this, and I can create an informal list, and then I can see if I happen to be missing a form, then I can reach out to find out what to do about that. Any questions? As I say, bgrant@wcpss.net or me, Bastin, that's ABASTIN @wcpss.net. Those email links are also on this PowerPoint, which is on the website. Thank you very much. I hope you found this useful, and please approach us with any questions that you have.
Great. Thank you so much, Mr. Bastin, for taking the time. He does an incredible amount of teaching. We so value what he does here at Washington, and he works with students at all grade levels. So it's a great resource. I hope you found this presentation to be helpful. Again, we're here to talk to you about ways we can extend, challenge, and enrich students at all grade levels across Washington. And Mr. Bastin outlined some of those ways, from SSA to formal identification through the informal identification process starting in kindergarten. And those electives are called our gift and challenge electives because we believe in the gifts and talents of all kids. We look to challenge kids in a variety of ways, and we believe in the importance of equity and having access to those incredible electives and challenges for all kids here at Washington. So look forward to working with you. Happy to talk with you further if you have questions about ways we challenge students here at Washington. Thank you for your support and hope you have a great afternoon.